This episode of Deep Cuts is a whole lot more topical. God of War was just released and we'll be talking major spoilers about the ending and a theory surrounding a couple of characters and the future of the series. So if you haven't played God of War yet, please come back to this video after you have and you're done with it. The game is amazing and it's absolutely worth your time and your money. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Deep Cuts, a show that examines lore, backstories, and theories in video games. That's your final warning, let's get to it. One of the big revelations at the very end of God of War is that Faye, Kratos' wife and Atreus' mother, was actually a giant from Jotunheim, one of the last of her kind, unbeknownst to our two protagonists. This makes Atreus part god and part giant. Faye also prophesies Kratos and Atreus' entire journey as it's inscribed on the walls in Jotunheim. Here we also learn what Faye had originally intended to name Atreus.
My name on the wall. The giants called me Loki?
Loki.
This was the other major revelation at the end of the game. Now knowing that Atreus is actually Loki changes almost everything. Atreus is far more important to the story and to this fictional Norse mythos than we had originally thought. He's much more than just the son of Kratos. And given some of the events that transpire, it actually makes sense in much of the actual Norse mythology. Though God of War obviously takes many liberties with the source material, in actual Norse mythology it is Loki who kills Baldur. And while it was Kratos who was the one to deal the killing blow, it would not have been possible had it not been for Atreus inadvertently removing Baldur's invulnerability. There's a lot of foreshadowing in God of War, whether it's the ongoing theme of sons killing fathers or the impending doom of Ragnarok. This is especially true at the ending, with the final panel on the wall in Jotunheim that only Kratos sees. He sees what appears to be his death. With all of the foreshadowing, it almost seemed as if Atreus was destined to kill Kratos. But I don't think that's the case, especially with the focus on Kratos wanting to break the cycle at the end of the game.
Who I was is not who you be.
Instead, what we see here on the last panel is a pretty important piece of evidence to a much more outlandish theory, but one that's certainly plausible. In Norse mythology, Loki had many children, which all took on different forms, such as a giant wolf named Fenrir, or an eight-legged stallion, and even a giant snake. The giant snake's name was Jormungandr, also known as the World Serpent, who happens to be an important character in God of War. But how can the World Serpent be Atreus' son? Well, in the game there are depictions of epic fights between Thor and the World Serpent, written in the Jotnar shrines. These are of battles that have yet to happen, or have already happened. It seems that the manipulation of time plays an important role in this game, and likely even more so in the future of the series. You see, during one of their battles, the World Serpent was sent back in time, which also explains the lore of how the World Serpent just showed up one day and caused massive flooding. But back to the point, I'm not about to suggest that Atreus one day hooks up with some serpent lady and they have a giant snake child, but perhaps Atreus birthed the World Serpent some other way. Back to the panel at Jotunheim. What I think we're really looking at is Atreus, aka Loki, using his godly powers to reincarnate Kratos as the World Serpent. Kratos will be killed, likely by Thor, and resurrected by Atreus/Loki so he can fight again. This theory is also supported by the white and red appearance of the serpent, not to mention he claims that Atreus is familiar to him. It's a pretty off-the-wall theory that would honestly be a kind of sad fate for such an iconic video game character. But this is just a theory, there's a lot of different directions they can take this story given the way it ended. What do you guys think? Thank you so much for watching this episode of Deep Cuts. If you watched this without finishing the game, shame on you. But nonetheless, if you enjoyed it, please hit that like button because it really does help my channel a lot. Thanks again.
Sliding my DMs and shit.
Slapping your DMs?
I said sliding, man.
They slapping.
People slide in, slap Billy's DMs.
You struggled with that. you tried so hard.
I'm so used to saying slide into the DMs.